Good evening. I'm Bonnie Hong,
And I'm Ben Hong.
and this is Norwich Confidential.
Well,
So
we've been away for about 3 weeks.
it's been a while for a number of reasons. Yep.
So we had some, I think, videos that we put in a few weeks ago. I hope you saw it. And today there's still quite a bit of work going on in the studio. So
We were really surprised when we came in. They're doing a lot of remodeling. It's going to be a big surprise for most people when they come back to Comcast Studios here.
we do have a new person here who's helping us and is making a big difference. And that's
Drew Bombay.
right.
He's our new tech person in the booth,
Right.
running the show for us now. So we thank you, Drew.
And he basically started putting this set together. And we missed our previous two guys that were here. But
Our students, the students from Norwich Tech who have been with us for the last year, both Greg and Mike, have done a great job. But now they've got paying jobs. And so for young high school
right.
students at Norwich Tech, getting a paying job is really good. But
And they all came from here. So if those of you who wants to learn a skill, this would be the best place to do that. And Ellen has been here ever since I can remember, for years. And she's great.
she is incredible.
She has all the video, visual, and audio knowledge and how to start a broadcast and so on. So this is very good,
Yep,
and we want to thank them.
Drew is learning from the best.
Right.
Ellen is definitely the best at what she does, so
Well,
we
Bonnie,
wouldn't be able
yes.
to do without it.
So, Bonnie,
Hi, Ben.
There's been so many things going on, of course, since we last were here. And, of course, the biggest thing going on right now is the primary that's going on for the Democratic Party as well as the Republican Party. And I've never had so much fun watching
The Republicans, they are unbelievable.
or Democratic Party. And I've never had so much fun watching this whole thing unfold. And I think it's just like the WWE.
Pretty close. But in the Democratic race, right now, the Secretary of State in Arizona appeared before their legislature and admitted there was voter fraud.
Wow.
And I think that they're saying that they believe it might have actually been hacked. Nobody is taking responsibility for this. It was really ridiculous. You had Democrats who were switched to Republicans or switched to independents, and they were not allowed to vote.
Well, also in the Republican
let's stay with this one first, because I want to talk about.
There are comments made, of course, by Donald Trump that how come he won a state and then came out with less delegates than the second winner. So that is something that they are also, of course, trying to figure it out. So there's a lot of, again, like I said, nice discussion among the candidates as well as in their own respective parties in itself. So this whole thing is going to unfold pretty soon. And as I was telling you, Bonnie, welcome to the third world. This is exactly how they do politics in other places in the world.
Explain that, Ben, because you come from a country that has been known to have a lot of corrupt.
Almost every so-called democratic country and republic countries in the world, especially the third world, have the same system, of course, as we do here, and that is to have a national election. And unfortunately, the rules of the election is not really that clear, and it just basically who happens to have the most money, who have the most guns, and who have the most
guns,
and who have the most people to go out and intimidate the other people. Now here we have the words, a war of words, and you kind of try to insult the other candidate, and the other candidate tries to insult you back, and the candidate tries to insult their wives, and the other candidate does the same thing, and then the other candidate insults the mother, and of course this is the whole thing. Well, that is what we do. We start out that way, and things do get a little bit heated sometimes, and then before you know it, they're going to have some shooting match over there. Now, this is what the Republican Party tried to do, and that is to allow an open gun carry into their national convention. And I said, this is becoming to be familiar.
It's, yeah. I mean, considering that with the, particularly the Republican Party that has mostly Donald Trump. I mean, let's not, it's been Donald Trump that has really been inciting a lot of hatred and a lot of violence. So for the Republican Party to consider even for one moment that even one person could go in there with a gun would be totally crazy. I mean, they've already done things that are totally crazy.
For them to consider having everybody bring their guns in,
yeah,
that's
I mean, you'd have a total shootout.
I mean, that's something to
the one standing,
consider.
the last one standing, becomes the Republican nominee.
Of course.
That's definitely...
That says it all. Well,
yeah,
like I said, welcome to the third world, because that is how it was determined.
That's how it works in the third world.
Right.
But I think with what's going on with the voter suppression, that's really serious.
Well,
I mean,
it still is a third world.
But we're not in a third world, supposedly. Yeah. And the fact that the Secretary of State can actually say, yes, this is real, there was voter fraud, it was voter suppression, and without really explaining how this happened or what they intend to do about it. According to her, they are not even considering having the primary re-voted on, because they certainly have time to do that, but they are not even considering that. They will look at the, what were the ballots that, I forgot what those ballots were called, but if you weren't actually allowed to vote, they would give you a provisional ballot, and so that those ballots are actually now going to be counted after they finish checking every single name on a previous roster of Democrats. So.
Well, the one thing that I'm really so surprised about this whole thing is this, that we have closed-circuit TV cameras in every street corner, maybe even 2 or 3, and you can actually pinpoint exactly what that person's face looks like. Now, why can't they put a closed-circuit TV camera in this, voting area? I'm sure that somebody must have thought about that, and somebody must have said, oh, nah, we don't need that.
Well, yes, and that's kind of a little bit like the discussion that's going on now with whether there'll even be another debate in New York.
Yes.
Because Hillary has said in the past that you should be prepared to debate anywhere at any time. And Bernie went along with that. They wanted to expand the number of debates, and to make sure he did it, she had that little statement. But now that it's in New York, she is refusing to debate. Her campaign, one of her campaign chairmen came out and said, well, if Bernie's tone changes, they will consider discussing it. Bernie's tone, excuse me, he has not had a single negative attack ad. What he has done is obviously ask real questions. Stick to what the real issues are. Is our government bought and paid for? Does money actually have an influence?
Well, Bonnie, there's also something called campaign strategy. If you are winning, then you should do everything you can to maintain that lead. So it is no different than a basketball game. I mean, if you are 10 points ahead, you have to kind of just dribble it away and kind of run in circles. And why mix and match it?
Sir.
When you're
Sir.
already... so it is called campaign strategy.
Hold on.
There is nothing there that says that you have to
problem, Ben.
have a mad wrestling all the time that you see
we're
somebody.
not talking about mud wrestling.
Well,
we're talking about an election in the United States. It is not a game. It is not a spectator sport. It is our democracy that is at stake. This is not just for.
But what is new that you haven't heard before? So Bernie Sanders want to have single-payer plan for health care, Medicare for all. So he wants to have free
No, that's
college
not.
tuition.
She's not. She has replicated almost every
Hillary
single
Clinton
one of those.
wants to have the backing of the Wall Street and all the corporations
Money.
and everything. So what else is new? I mean, what can you do to debate that? I mean, there's no debate. It's already been known to every. I mean,
the fact is that even in Norwich, as much as we have tried to get the word out and talk about the primaries and talk about the candidates, even in Norwich, if you just go grocery shopping, and please try this on your own. If you do know, and you really want to engage people, certainly Bernie Sanders has not had, he had what, 80 seconds of actual news coverage for the first 7 months of the campaign. Wait a minute. First 7 months, 80 seconds. So then the next 2 months, every single time you hear his name, it's associated, that's socialist. To again instill fear by using one word, because most people don't even understand what a democratic socialist is. Then as soon as they finish with that, they want to say he's giving away everything for free. How is he going to pay for all this free stuff? Our taxes are going to go up. So people have not really heard about Bernie Sanders. They've heard a lot of pundits who want to exaggerate and not tell the truth about Bernie.
Well, but this is exactly what politics is all about, Bunny. What we're looking at is democracy in action. And that is exactly how the world is seeing us. And they are seeing us like, oh, well, you're no different than we are. We all look alike.
We all look alike?
That's right.
That's cute. That's cute. But
So,
you're right. The world is seeing us. On our
Yes.
Facebook page, we have gotten posts from people in Italy, from
right.
people in Sweden.
Right.
The huge march that was done in Sweden to support Bernie Sanders here.
They even have a march there, right?
They did.
Yes.
And the world is looking at this.
Yes.
And, you know, I mean, what? England said they wouldn't allow Trump into the
That's
country.
right. They would ban
I mean, they would
Trump.
ban Trump.
And,
Trump says, I don't care. I mean, he'd bomb him.
Well, and Trump said, well, we'll build a wall in the Mexican border. Well, it all depends on which side he is on, because if he happens to be in the Mexican
side at that moment,
he won't be able to come back here.
And that's not so bad.
But in any case, we are looking at, and the serious tone here is this, that we're looking at the democracy at work. And we being the so-called the cradle of democracy, of course it's the Greek and the Roman, but yes, we're the cradle. So every eyes in the world is turned to us. And if we see things that are going on that we should not accept, then we should not accept. So if Donald Trump is not acceptable to you, then you should make note of that. And not only that, but let it be known. So there are a lot of media, as well as there are a lot of outlets there to let your ideas known. But the fact is this, that what is happening with that certain candidate is that he's becoming to be almost like a warlord. And he is discussing things in a sense that it is going to be them against us, and we are going to beat them up before they beat us on this. So there's a lot of hate mongering in that group there. And this is exactly how the third world country campaign their so-called during their election. They are going to pinpoint out a group of either ethnic group or something that is different to put and channel all their hate into that group and deflect whatever might be coming to him. Not only that, he solidifies his support by having this group of people that is constantly going to be around him. Even his campaign workers, his campaign manager, are the leaders of this kind of activities. Now, maybe it is acceptable, maybe it is not, but I think judgment is going to come out eventually, and we will probably know exactly when Donald Trump becomes president of the United States.
Please. You know, I saw one, I think they're called mimes, those little cartoon kinds of things that where a picture's worth 1,000 words. And the mime was directed toward all the prejudice that actually is coming out in Donald Trump's campaign.
Well, yes.
They called it, you know, the rats in America's cellar.
Right now, he's the most vile politician there is known, although that really is not, he's not the first one that is really playing that kind of dirty politics. But at this time in the modern politics, he's probably known as the most repulsive of all candidates. Unfortunately, he has a great chance of becoming the president of the United States. Let me tell you how.
Well, I mean, there's also, okay, you first tell us how.
Because if he is going to win the Republican nomination as candidate for the Republican Party, and Hillary Clinton is going to win the Democratic
he'll be president.
Party. And unfortunately, during their campaign, they may put Hillary into jail, and that leaves
Okay.
and that leaves Trump as the sole candidate. And so 20, 30, 50 years from now, they'll look
I
at
take
this.
the-
Sure.
Okay.
And they'll look at this time and say, well, let's
think
dissect the anatomy of how a Donald Trump becomes
Hi,
president.
you're on Norwich Confidential.
Yeah, I got a question. Is Dottie Rose going to be on here?
Not tonight.
All right.
Thank you. Bye.
So, you know, 20, 30 years from now, written in the history book will be, well, how could they, in the year 2016, those people who we thought were all more intellectual than that, could elect somebody like Donald Trump to be president?
I know.
And
But
they will have
that's also, it's so frightening, though. One of the things that a number of people have made an analogy to, because a lot of us could never understand how Hitler could have come to power and done the kinds of things he did. And when you see a group of people being led into such hatred, now, a lot of we do have a lot of reasons to be angry. Most Americans they're really suffering. You've got the majority of Americans who are put in situations they never thought they would be put in the United States, the wealthiest country in the world, and we have our seniors living in near poverty. We have, without real choices in medical care. You know, you have a Congress that, as our prices go up, our taxes go up, and what they don't even give a cost of living increase to the most vulnerable, the seniors living on Social Security, disabled veterans. I mean, these are people that should have, if nothing else, a cost of living increase, but it's not given to them. There is no fairness in this system. So when Donald Trump is talking about a lot of these issues, I'm going to make America the greatest country again, and we're tired of losing. He doesn't give any policy statements. He doesn't give any real information about how he would govern, other than he would bomb the heck out of them and he'd kill their families.
There is a message there, Bonnie. There is a hidden message. Whenever he says something, we are going to make America great again. While in the mind of the people, we are losing it. And the reason why we're losing it is because somebody else is taking away our jobs. Somebody else is taking away our economy.
Right.
And so that there is that hidden message. And we're going to be strong again. Well, there is that message there that we have become weak. And the reason why we're becoming weak is because our military has been hand-tied or whatever. So the message is the way that we're going to make ourselves strong again is we are going to go after those guys who are taking all of these things away from us.
Right.
So who are those guys who are taking away those things from us? Well, it's the foreigners. Okay, so now we have a target of our hatred.
Right.
And that is how despots like Hitler, like Saddam Hussein, Mussolini,
Lenin,
and
go on and on.
in China and so on, go on and on. And you wonder, well, how could those people ever at their time support this,
right.
evil people? Well, it is so easy to see.
Right.
Because
When
we
you
are
have
actually
nothing,
seeing it
right.
now.
When you have nothing and the system keeps you there, it doesn't help you raise up out of poverty. It doesn't help you raise up out of a low education level. It doesn't do any of that. But what you just said is exactly the basis of all that hate. But they're going after the wrong target.
Well,
it is not the people that are making 25 cents or 35 cents in Indonesia taking away the jobs. The people that you should be angry at are the corporations that decided, I don't have to be a good American. My whole purpose is to make more money, and the highest amount of money I can possibly make, as much money as is imaginable.
Well,
and that is actually...
Well, I don't agree with you, Bunny, in the sense, because what you're trying to say is that instead of channeling your hatred against, the Chinese or the Muslims, you are now asking us to channel the same hatred against the 0.1%. Well, instead of giving that message, we are going to make America great again. How? By getting better educated, by getting better this and that.
Yes,
but instead of saying, oh, my situation is like this, I'm despondent, I'm poor, and so on, because I was not given the opportunity or because somebody took the job away from me, that creates a hidden message of you are not at fault here, but you are the victim. And because I'm the victim, I can now raise my arms and do away with all this. I'm not going to let them come in. I'm not going to let them steal my job. I'm not going to let them take my money, and I'm not going to let them do this. Well, the problem is not that.
Well, go on. Tell me what the problem is.
The problem is we're letting our own people that are rich influence our government and have supporters and lobbyists to make rules to make them be exempted.
That's right. And I am not picking on the 1%. I am not picking on the corporations per se, but they are, when a company like Pfizer's been, who has been given every advantage in this country, every advantage, all the research that Pfizer's picked up was paid for with our tax dollars through what's the federal agency, the National Health Services, that does that initial research. You look at all of the advantages that these corporations have, and now instead of paying their taxes that are due back to the American people for the profits they've made, we pay the highest prices for the drugs that they produce. Every other country in the world pays a lower price for their drugs than the United States does. They owe the United States $35 billion in taxes. What they owed being here in Connecticut in tax that was never paid because, oh my goodness, we can't make these corporations pay. They'll leave our state. They leave our state anyway, and they leave us in worse condition, because when they do not pay their taxes and their fair share, they destroy communities. They reduce the quality of life that we have in the state, which is one of the reasons they came here to begin with. So,
they are companies that are taking advantage of the loopholes that are in our government. Loopholes that, by the way, they authored. They authored those regulations. And now they are they'll be in Ireland, and like you said, Bunny, they owed the U.S. government something like $30 to $35 billion worth of taxes. Right. They have a way, by the way, of doing away with that. And that they say that they're just going to renounce their U.S. citizenship.
Right. I mean,
and therefore they no longer have to answer to
Well,
the United States government.
And I think that's fine, and I think all their patents should be now free market. Everybody wants a free market. When a company does that to the United States and renounces even its citizenship to us, oh, well, let's see. Couldn't there be one regulation that says, all right, all of your patents are now public property?
Well, that is
Let-
probably a
let-
short-sighted
That's not
reflex action,
no,
honey.
that's
But
not-
what we're trying to say is that here we are, we're talking about democracy in action, and the democracy in action really goes all the way to the top, and that is who's supporting your presidential candidate, who's the lobbyist
You're right.
that is in Congress or in the Senate, and are they all in the same party?
Right.
And they could be, because it's majority rule. And if I were Pfizer, I would do everything I can to write me an escape clause that says, well, if you become very, very rich, how could you hold on to your money? Well, let's move on outside of the United States and we can hang on to that money. Now, I'm surprised that they did not make a ruling, a tax ruling that says they're exempt from paying an IRS tax.
Well, almost all of them in some way become exempt because they use very creative accounting. They
And-
get these grants back from the United States government. The mega farmers, it's not our small farmers that are, they get such a small amount of assistance from the farming bill. The majority of that is going to these huge commercial farms that are doing that. All right, but you know,
Well, Pfizer is not an exemption. It is not the unique organization. It is the way
Right, it's
that
not
we
an
are
exception.
now, and that they're now playing in this game of big corporations.
Right.
And banks are doing the same thing, and for the simple reason that they were too large and
To
too
fail.
big to fail. And that is exactly. Now, the other thing, of course, is that how does it affect us? Well, it affects us because we have to pay for that medication that they just raised 1,000%.
right.
And even though that medication is now no longer on patent, they have already expired their patent on that. They can still make generic medications that are the only company that makes them. They can still sell the same medication at such a
that's
high
why there's
price.
something. That's why there's something wrong with that whole system.
And it goes back to what I was just saying, that it is not just one person or so. We are a democracy, and this is the democracy that we are watching now. And is it falling apart? I don't think it is falling apart, because the big corporations are just doing what they think they
can
are
get
doing.
away with.
It's when they are dictating the government, that's when we are going to fall apart.
But they already are in so many ways, Ben, dictating the government. You just said yourself that, you know, half the regulations that gets passed through Congress, whether it's the House and the Senate or whatever, is written by them.
Yes.
That's actually who writes that legislation.
Right.
It's just, it's like having little puppets that they can play with. When you have a state where every single elected official it can, well, you know why you have this, the Hillary Victory Fund, that is a dual fund with the National Democratic Committee and Hillary Clinton's campaign committee. They have this one fund of money that they're now going to states with to get these superdelegates. They've actually bought them. So they come into Connecticut. I don't know what else was promised, but they come into the state and say, okay, you're going to get $100,000 from this Hillary's Victory Fund so that you can run the campaigns of these elected officials. So Courtney can feel safe. He's going to get a piece of the pie. You know, Blumenthal can feel safe. He's going to get a piece of the pie. Now let me tell you what happened when citizens actually approached them. Because obviously you guys know that we are very supportive of Bernie Sanders. We've already said we do endorse Bernie for a number of reasons. But What we wanted to do was take a look at the superdelegates. So we called and asked Representative Courtney, Senator Blumenthal, and Senator Murphy if a group of citizens from the 2nd Congressional District, one from all 64 towns, could come and discuss with them why we are supporting Bernie Sanders. I give Representative Joe Courtney credit because he was the only one that actually would meet with us. Chris Murphy's office told us that he's too busy and that the only time he could meet with us would be after the national convention. He wasn't too busy to go campaign for Hillary, but he was too busy to meet with the constituents of the state. Senator Blumenthal wouldn't even give us the courtesy of responding to us, not with anything. And the citizen from the 2nd Congressional District that was asking several times to please let him meet with us was a campaign supporter of Senator Blumenthal, who even opened up her home and had a fundraiser for him from the 2nd Congressional District. And he wasn't even courteous enough to respond to us. So when Joe Courtney came, and he came down to the grassroots office that is on Main Street in downtown, we had about 75 people there to speak with him. Not everyone spoke. We did limit it. There were maybe about 10, 12 people that actually spoke to him, from seniors that talked about the policies that Bernie wanted to enact, about why they were supporting him, why students were supporting him. And then I spoke about the practical political reasons why Bernie should be supported. If you want Democrats to win, all you have to do is look at the polls, because Bernie nationally will win against anyone the Republicans put up. So, and Hillary, the only one that she does beat at the polls right now, before they're actually having any debate, is Trump. She loses to every other Republican. I think that when you recognize that Bernie has not done any attacks, he's talked about how money has bought our government, and it has, and Hillary has not one plan to actually get money out of politics, other than she'll go talk to the banks and say, cut it out. I mean, that's only one of the things. So when you look at the overall effect that money does have on our system, it's pretty hard to then look at our elected officials and say, if you really are concerned about the Democratic Party, that has not been the party of the people for a long time. You go with the candidate who's going to restore the Democratic Party, make it the party of the people, give the people a voice. So even with those kinds of arguments, we still get, and that was, I actually gave Representative Courtney a two-part question. One, will he, if the 2nd Congressional District votes for Bernie Sanders, will he represent the voice of the 2nd Congressional District as a superdelegate? And his answer to that was basically no. The second part of my question was, once we have a President Sanders, will he support his policies and his platform? We never got an answer to that one at all.
Well, they basically have to protect their own selves. But we're, again, looking at democracy in action. And you mentioned about the grassroots coming up, and what is coming from the top would be the so-called corporation-sponsored candidates for you to choose. So it's either candidate A or candidate B. Now, there was a time when all candidate A, B, and C, and D were of the same flavor. But
Right.
This is one time when there is somebody who is not being marketed by or supported or funded by a big corporation. And so we are now looking at how will this democracy or action of democracy will come out to be. And it doesn't look very bright, but at the same time, there are people outside of the United States who are looking at us and saying, well, we want to find out exactly how they do this. And you probably may not remember this, but when we were in the Democratic Convention in New Hampshire, when they had Hillary Clinton as well as Bernie Sanders speak, there were a lot of foreign private people as well as media people that were just interested in
Hillary.
in looking at how the democracy works.
Oh, that's yeah.
And they even they tried to identify who they are. But again, this is one of those things that we say, well, it looks like that the major companies are winning in this type of so-called program or campaign, because their candidates seems to be coming out ahead. And now the question is, well, yes, they probably got our government down that will continue to support them. So when is it going to end? Well, like I said, well, welcome to the third world, because the next thing that they are going to do is they're going to try to control the military. Well, and once they control the military, then we are the...
I remember when Bernie's campaign first started, and he started using the word revolution, a political revolution.
Right.
And I supported him, but I started thinking, wow, that's not going to help him. But, you know, and the more that we got into the campaign, the more I realized that it has to be a political revolution. This is not an election. If we don't take back our government now with the ballot, and Bernie Sanders is giving us that opportunity. It's not so much about Bernie Sanders. It's about whether or not we have enough Americans who really understand that our democracy is what we are actually voting for. We're at that critical period. It's like the tipping period of climate change. We are at the tipping period of our own democracy and our own the future of our own republic.
And when Bernie Sanders said that our election process is rigged, our economy is rigged, and so on, nobody really at any time questioned that. So it is assumed that he is right. And a lot of people do say that, except that they cannot come out with a number and say, well, here is the proof. Because what did Hillary Clinton promise the Wall Street Journal people? I mean, the Wall Street people. We don't know, because she was given $250,000 as a speaking fee, except we don't know what she was telling them about. What was she promising them? And that is the major issue. And so there is a problem in both parties, either Democratic Party or Republican Party.
Yeah, and like you said, we've always, for a long time, been the only choices we are ever given are basically the same thing with a little different flavor. So, you know, I mean, instead of voting, I mean, I really believe this. Instead of voting and picking the lesser of an evil, I, for the first time, am really and truly voting for a greater good.
We should be voting for the best candidate to do the job, instead of going through our judgment and decision and saying, well, gee, it could be worse. Well, I'll take somebody who lies better than I take somebody who is a manipulator, or I'll take somebody who's probably this and this. So you get all the flavors. But the problem is that we no longer are given the choice.
Right.
Of
it's made up for you by the time you reach November. The corporations have already managed to manipulate.
They've already corrupted those candidates by the time they're in that level. And so there really has not been any choice, because it's already been filtered out. So the filter there is $100,000
Yeah,
donation.
the filter. That's the filter.
If you
can
take
start,
it, well, okay, you can rise.
You can
if
rise
you don't
up.
take it, then you stay down.
and then if you can take the 100,000, I've got even more for you.
Right.
You know, but it really, it's frustrating. I mean, people now are making assumptions as to who in Connecticut will get what jobs in Washington once Hillary's there. First of all, folks, Hillary is not there. You know, this is not a foregone conclusion. I get so angry when I see that they tried to tell Bernie, Senator Sanders, that you really should be attacking the Republicans now. You know, get on our team and attack the Republicans. He's not running against the Republicans right now. He's running against Hillary. When he has gotten the nomination, I know exactly how he will attack he won't have to attack them. All he'll have to do is give the facts, and they're going to self-destruct. You know, if you've watched any of their debates are not filled with facts. They're filled with, oh, he's got little hands, and I wonder what else that is.
Actually, it's a good television show, Bonnie. I mean, you know, people used
reality?
to watch. Yeah, reality show. I mean,
It's
you know,
another
they used to
reality show?
Puppet show or whoever those
Ben,
shows are.
you know, I haven't been able to watch it. I mean, it is so. I mean, because I cannot think of this as I find nothing funny in it. I really
Well.
don't. I see our country in these men, and that is not the country that my father fought for. It's not the country that you fought for. It breaks my heart. You know, I mean, when I see the number of veterans that have stepped forward and come on board for Bernie, one of the most moving ads was one that was done by Tulsi Gabbard from Hawaii.
Yeah.
I mean, she's a veteran. She knows exactly what this election is all about. She literally stepped down from the National Democratic, the Democratic National Committee as the vice chairman. She relinquished all of that power just so that she could come out publicly and support Senator Sanders. Because, and when you realize the commitment that the public officials that have come out and stood up for him, what they faced to do that, I mean, I am proud of the people who have shown that much courage.
And Sanders did win Hawaii last weekend, so
Well,
primary.
not just Hawaii, Alaska,
Yeah.
Washington.
Yes.
I mean, and with big numbers. These were not little numbers. And one of the reasons that you cannot, I mean, I was pretty impressed because you cannot change the picture of a huge auditorium with one whole side filled from the floor to the rafters, from that wall to that wall with Bernie supporters. And on the other side, the middle section is there for Hillary, not on the sides, not up in the rafters. So you have no choice but there's no way to interfere with that vote.
Well, it's the same picture that we saw in New Hampshire, only not as dramatic, because obviously New Hampshire was not as populous as those other states.
Right,
But
and
it
it
is
wasn't quite as dramatic,
right.
you're right. But
it
we
is
saw it.
Yeah, it is of a similar presentation, I guess.
Right.
But there are things, I think, that we need to keep in mind in this election. We really need to dig and find out what the truth is. We can no longer afford to have the media tell us what to think. We can no longer afford to let the media tell us what somebody says about somebody, because there is I don't think that there was any time, well, maybe there was in the time before, that the media was spreading all the lies and all the rumors about a certain candidate, or not putting in the positive comments about a certain candidate, only the negative comment. So there's a lot of things that are the mainstream media may or may not be putting out, and therefore it really, to fight for our democracy, we have to maintain a democratic populace and voters. And the only way that we can be like that is to really find the truth and find,
Right. We
what is true.
no longer have a press or a media that does the kind of investigative journalism that we used to have, where people would not tolerate the kinds of reporting. I mean, their own companies would not tolerate
There
it.
used to be what we call as well, they are impartial, and so we trust them to
Right.
tell us what is happening. And they used to give them equal time or equal exposure.
Right.
But now it is very clear that each media have their own favorite candidate, and they are the mouthpiece of that candidate. So
Right.
New York Times is the mouthpiece of Hillary Clinton.
Well,
And Fox News is probably a mouthpiece of Trump.
well,
So
I think even
there's a-
some of them are upset with Trump, but because he's so far. I mean, the amount of. I haven't watched Fox News. Are they actually supporting Trump?
I don't know.
Oh, good. I'm glad you're not watching it either. But you know, this is really serious stuff. This is not. And as I said, I mean, you have to. We have to tell you that yes, we do support Bernie. So that part of what our frustration is the fact that you don't get the news. I mean, even as I go door to door canvassing for Bernie, and I'll have a Bernie T-shirt on, and I'll ask them, you know, do you know anything about Bernie? And when she was about 87, and first thing she says to me, I know enough. And what she really knew was that he was a socialist, he's going to tax her to death, and he's going to give all that money to pay for free stuff for everybody else. And when I told her that, you know, none of that was true, I mean, first of all, she is a dedicated Democratic voter. She's voted in every election, a primary, local election. She has always voted Democrat. And that's what she started telling me this, that she's been a Democrat her whole life. She will not vote for Hillary. She's going to, for the first time, vote for a Republican. And I thought, okay, you're not going to vote for Hillary, and you're a strong Democrat. And what you've heard about Bernie is just those three things that I've said. So I started telling her some of the things about what Bernie stands for. And what some of his policies are, and how long he has fought for these things. This is not a Johnny-come-lately, gee, I'll tell you what you want to hear. If you listen to a lot of what he has been saying for 30 years, this is what he's been saying. He's been warning about this. And by the way, I received a video that was done by a young man in New York he's a graphic designer in New York, and what he did was put together a very good video. He was raised in Norwich, went to NFA, and so I posted it and put down that this is a young man. Actually, it was his mother who sent me this information about him. And I posted it, and I saw that he got a comment, and they were very excited, and they said, "Good hometown boy." So, you know, I mean, when everyone from all walks of life are looking at this election as not an election, but as a revolution, because that's what it's going to take to get this money and the influence of that money out of our government.
Well, I'm more concerned about the process, and I think our democratic process will be strong and to withstand any of this thing, but it is the ultimate people that we elect that will be the one that will either make us stronger or will make us weaker.
Do you think that those issues of voter suppression that we have seen, or a digital voting machine where you have absolutely no verification of votes, do you think that these things?
You have to look it up in a clear glass, because you're looking at it at a rose-colored glass, that you were victimized because of what happened to that. In other words, if you think that, Well, those votes that were not counted, or those voters that were not allowed to vote because there was a shortage of ballots, would have voted for Bernie Sanders, then you would say, I am so incensed by that, and so on. And
But
therefore,
it's part of the process. I'm asking you,
yes,
it's part of the process. What do you think?
like I said, it all depends on how you argue this one. And if your thought process is just that I'm impartial, I don't care who the votes went to or who would have voted,
Right.
I am just incensed by the fact that a lot of people were not allowed to vote, then definitely I am standing for the democracy and the right to vote.
Right.
But if you look at the reason why you are incensed about it or you're angered by it is because your candidate was not given in the votes that would have been given to him. Like, for instance, what happened in Massachusetts, in Boston, during the voting process, when Bill Clinton stood in front of a voting precinct.
Well, he actually also went inside the voting.
Right. And you're saying to us, well, the reason why I'm so angry at that is because he should not have been there standing, blocking the voting, and therefore a lot of our Sanders voters were not allowed to go in. Well, obviously there is a way of looking at it that way, but if you look at it like saying he should not have been there, he should not have been allowed to there because it was illegal, period.
Right.
Then
And-
that should have been
And I think
the issue.
And for me, in Massachusetts, that was the issue. Because again, nobody should be above the law.
Right.
I am tired of seeing people that think they can get away with something.
But the protest and the anger comes from the
people that are
Bernie Sanders.
Do you think Hillary's
side.
going to be protesting?
Well-
Not one of Hillary's
And that's
supporters.
precisely what I mean, Bonnie. This is precisely why it's not going to make so much of a big difference in terms of eventually what's going to happen to that election commission in Arizona or what's happening in Boston, Massachusetts, because they are going to look at it as saying, oh, they're just sour grapes because they did not get their candidate elected, or, you know. So, but if this comes from a, say, for instance, a UN observatory commission, like what they do, putting them on the third world country,
Right. And
trying to find out
we
if
need
the
the
voting-
UN to be.
that's right, because we are now third world country in terms
Yeah.
of democratic voting.
But-
So they should put UN observer
On our polls.
On our
But you
polls.
know, even when the UN came down and criticized the U.S. for torture, nothing happened. The UN came down and criticized the U.S. because of the water situation, where Americans didn't have water, and the UN tried to intervene with that. Nothing. So having even the UN show up at one of our voting it's like water off the duck's back, because again, people think they are above the law.
because the corporation, like I said, the corporation has the strength and has the power to manipulate our elected officials. And those are the officials that we should not vote on to put into power. And if you know that Hillary Clinton is in bed with Wall Street and so on, then she should not be elected.
But that's not the
because-
reason not to elect her. I mean, it is if what you want is to have our democracy back. My concern has more to do with a number of other issues, with not just her, the support of Wall Street and the corporations that have given her huge sums of money. I mean, everybody knows that. And it's, yes, if you want that thing to stop, you don't vote for those types of candidates. But aside from that, almost every one of the other candidates, Ben, takes money. There are
course,
very
yeah.
few that will do just public funding. Very few.
Well,
So
that's true. Before they even decide to run, they go to this dating game.
That's right, the dating game, to see, you know, to be interviewed by the Koch
corporation.
brothers and a few of the others, just to see, well, okay, who's going to be my date?
Yeah.
You know, what laws do you want written, sir? Let's see if I can't do that. We'll, but you know, I mean, the truth is that, I mean, even now, my concern, and again, it's not being brought out yet. I mean, the FBI is still doing an investigation.
Let that unfold, and we will see what really is going to happen, and we will just see if our criminal justice system is going to work.
Well, didn't you tell me that you read somewhere about the FBI agents that?
Well, again, these are all news leaks, they call it.
Yeah.
So again, it depends on which side of the line are you talking about. Eventually, something is going to come up, and eventually we will soon know exactly what's going to happen. In the meantime, we need to protect our due process, and we need to protect our so-called democratic process, because we really are heading towards a third world country. Now, pretty soon, it's going to be somebody from the Philippines who will set us the rules, or maybe somebody from Iraq and says, well, you know, when we voted Saddam Hussein, he got 98% of the vote, but we also have 100% turnout. So, and there was no violence or anything like that, except that the killing already were done a long time ago.
That was before the 99% showed up at the polls, or the 100% showed up.
So in any case, this is something new to a lot of people here, but for those of us who's been through this type of election before, and it became very, very complacent. And then you either say, oh, really, I'm not going to do that. Well, oh yeah, well, here's the point of the gun.
But right now, I mean, really and truly, right now, for this, that's one of the reasons why I honestly feel this is our one chance to restore our.
And the world and throughout history has never had anything like this before. We talked about, you know, empire building by emperor or kings and all these other rulers, but we have never in any time in history been ruled by a group of big companies.
I know. It is amazing.
And this is something new. So there's some new word that's going to come out of this as to what system do you live in. Well,
it's
really not
corporatology?
Something like that.
What is this called?
Well, how do you do that? Oh, we elect the candidates that is presented to us as
by the companies.
By the companies.
Yeah, by the corporations.
And
they like these guys, so that's who we can vote for.
And who wrote your laws? Well, it's the company, and they present it to our representative, and they vote on it.
Okay. We're running out of time already. Ben and I do have good conversations, not just on the show, but we will not be on next week. Next week they actually changed the date when their meetings are here at Comcast. They're still doing renovations, so they will be having their monthly meeting next Wednesday, April 6th. So I will make sure I have a good video for you that will be informative. Probably, again, we will feature Democracy Now!, which is one of the, I think, most reliable news sources. They always have both sides of an issue that's discussed, unlike what we do.
And please do come down and visit us, and maybe if you want to talk about what's in your mind, it has anything to do with Norwich or any of the state, which, by the way, we're running short of money, and pretty soon everybody is going to be fired.
There's a lot of issues.
There's a lot of issues. So we have always something to talk about.
Yes. So I do want to again thank Drew Bombay for agreeing to be our permanent tech staff. Hopefully he will be permanent for a while. So we say good night, and we will see you in 2 weeks. Thank you for joining us.
Good night.